Let me start with a personal remark. I have a long history of engagement with the German Ministry of Development Cooperation to influence development policies from a gender perspective. Of course, women's visibility, gender equality, and women's rights were a crucial motivation in the beginning. However, over time, my focus shifted very much to macroeconomy, trade policies, the post-colonial inequality between global north and global south, and the structural impact on women's livelihoods and rights. With regard to individual empowerment of women and gender equality, feminist lobbying was in the long run pretty successful. Feminist principles regarding macroeconomy and geopolitics were not. Next slide, please. The official guidelines of German FFP from 2023 claim that it is value-based, aims at gender equality and enforcement of women's rights. It wants to overcome violence and to transform historically grown power structures. The focus is on 3R: representation, rights, resources. Crucial reference is the Women, Peace and Security agenda in the UN Resolution 1325. It sees women as agents of change, for example, in the Green New Deal, and wants to cooperate on equal footing. Despite of most likely good intentions and a declared intersectional approach, the guidelines ignore the framework of unequal power. No reference is made to the prevailing dominance of Western geopolitics, economic interests, or post-colonial power asymmetries, meaning it delinks feminist policies of its material and ideological context and conditions, and is based on the self-conception of the EU as a value-based normative power. Yes, this is the right slide. First of all, foreign policy is governed by national economic and geopolitical interests, and this confines the space in which feminist policies can maneuver. My first example for the dilemma between rhetorics and reality is migrant policies. Recently, Germany adopted the strategy of pushback at the borders, restrictions in granting asylum, and attempts to deport more refugees. Bureaucratic barriers by German institutions have prevented even Afghan and Iranian feminists from entering the country. These policies knowingly put up with the death of thousands of migrants in the Mediterranean Sea. One of the prevailing narratives is that European values have to be protected against others, in particular Muslim cultures, and white women against the attacks of violent young male migrants from the Middle East. All this blatantly contradicts feminist principles on intersectional vulnerabilities, human rights, and anti-racism. As migration and asylum policies are highly contested in Europe, the German Minister for Foreign Affairs in international negotiations has no choice but to address the official goals of German migration and foreclosure policies. My second example for an appalling contradiction between rhetorics and reality is the ongoing militarization and trade in arms. Since the beginning of the war between Ukraine and Russia, an appalling trend to militarization in the interior has taken place, constructing a mindset to be ready for war. Military budget increases, social budget is cut down. The export of arms was doubled, not only to the Ukraine and Israel, but to authoritarian states like Saudi Arabia, famous for violation of women's rights and coalition with Islamistic forces, and to Turkey, which fights the Kurdish opposition with German weapons. Beyond the double standards, selling arms to these conflict parties contributes to the intensification of conflicts, proactively supports the stronger party, and gives economic interest preference to moral Western standards. Nationalism, militarization, and preparedness for war are normalized and interwoven in a violent, masculinistic way. They undermine all feminist principles of peace, anti-violence, and conflict resolution. The next one, the most striking example of national interest, German, and of double standards is the fight against anti-Semitism and pro-Israel, which the current German government, due to its historic guilt of the Holocaust, has coined a moral reason for the German state. In an increasingly authoritarian way, any pro-Palestinian statement and any critique of the Israeli state and its settler colonialism is called anti-Semitic. On this background of behaving like an imperial moral police, an authoritarian cancel culture has been launched, removing paintings from exhibition, disinviting feminists like Nancy Fraser and Judith Butler from public events, banning slogans from the river to the sea and the BDS campaign. While the German government still refuses to pay reparations to compensate for the genocide of the Nama and Herero people in Namibia, this way of moral rehabilitation implies that the ongoing genocidal war and its victims in Gaza are not openly condemned. So Germany officially sticks to the two-state solution and proposes a ceasefire. To sum up, German feminist foreign policy is informed by liberal feminism, which wants to integrate or include, as Emilia has said, include women often as underpaid workers into existing political and economic structures, into markets for the sake of growth and profit-making, into political decision-making, the Green New Deal, peace building, and so on. Women's work and women's rights are sometimes used to legitimize geopolitical goals, as experienced in Afghanistan, and feminism is in a neoliberal way appropriated for national capitalist and environmental interests. Feminist foreign policy is nothing but a nice label, or better, a fraud label, however, a structural paradox, because it wields the material and ideological power play in foreign policies and the real deficit of space to negotiate. It is femo-nationalistic, suggesting a moral and knowledge superiority of a supposedly homogeneous European or German feminism, and legitimizing Germany to give directions to the rest of the world how to do foreign policies. This is a neo-colonial, paternalistic and imperialistic attitude, arrogant and ignorant against the diversity of feminisms and against other values. Thank you very much.